Hey everybody, this is Andrea Paulton, your marketing guide, and I got something crazy special for you. I met this guy online on Facebook in a podcast group, and he was so intriguing because he's a designer, a web developer, an IT guy. He's hugely positive about leadership and success, not just in business, but also in life. So there's just so much going on and so much goodness that I was like, okay, this guy has to be on my show. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about how to juggle all these crazy hats. And then we're going to talk about how to be more successful in life, not just your business. So I'm going to let Jacob introduce himself, but just so you guys know, I'm going to put links in the show notes to his web design company, harmonsdesign.com, and to his super duper awesome podcast, mysuccessquest.com. It'll all be in the show notes. Hi, Jacob. How are you doing?
Hey, Andrea, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So since I just gave this huge introduction, can you narrow it down and tell my listeners, please, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Jacob Harmon, and you already mentioned a lot of the things I'm doing. I dabble in just about everything. And part of the reason that I do that is just because I can't stand still. I can't not be doing something. And when I get bored of something, I just have to go and try something else. And part of that is because I just love to learn. But the other part is just I have to keep myself busy. And I hate being bored. So I'm always doing new things. But the great thing about that is that I've learned so much about so many different industries. And really, I'm just passionate about business. I'm passionate about life. And I'm passionate about helping other people with both business and life too. And that's where kind of this new podcast is coming in, My Success Quest. We're trying to help people both in business, but even more importantly, live a balanced life and really just do great things.
Yeah, I just listened to one of the podcast episodes you had where you had a gentleman on talking about public speaking and how to be a better interviewee or how to speak better on these podcasts.
Yep.
So that was really interesting. And I like that you have this, you're a lover of learning, but you're also a lover of teaching, which I think that is really important to be able to be a good teacher is to be a good learner. So I want to really first start talking, which was the original topic of this podcast episode, was how do you have a full-time job, have a family, and have multiple side hustles, a podcast, a web design business. I really want to just get into that more. So first of all, how many hours do you sleep a night? That's my first question.
I try to get 8. I don't though. Generally speaking,
okay, so you do get sleep.
I mean, that's the goal, right? Everyone says that 8 hours is the golden standard. But I don't. I probably end up going to bed 11:30 every night and waking up around 6:30. So puts me at what, about 7 hours?
Nice. That's good. That's healthy, right? 7 to 9 hours.
Yeah. And I have found one of the things with juggling so many things is I do have to work in the mornings and the evenings. And also just whenever I have a chance, I'll whip out my laptop and do something. And so evenings are crucial for me. And also sometimes I have to wake up a little bit early to get something done, especially if I want to spend any quality time with my family, because I have 2 kids and they demand a lot of attention. But once they're asleep, the house kind of settles down. I can whip out my laptop and get some work done. But then it's also important not to neglect my wife, right? Like we also need to spend quality time together. And it's hard. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not perfect at it. Like I'm trying but I still get overwhelmed and I still try to just do the best I can, but
yeah,
I mess up too, you know?
So how old are your children?
So we've got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. My wife's probably listening in the other room saying, no, he's 7 months or something, but he's around there.
So that means that they go to bed early. And so you do have tons of time in the evening. So how many hours in the evening do you have free after the kids go to bed?
Yeah. So usually the kids will be asleep around 7:30. We've been blessed. Our kids sleep so well. Both of them do. And they'll go to bed around 7:30. I'll usually block off from the time they go to bed until about 9:30, and I'm with Annie. And then she likes to go to bed pretty early too. And then that's time where I whip out my laptop and I start planning another podcast episode or designing a website for a client that needs something done by tomorrow. That's where I
So
kind of.
then it's like work party time.
Yep.
Okay, so wife goes to bed, kids go to bed first, wife goes to bed. Where do you get the energy to then not say, I need to go to bed, I need to veg out in front of the TV? Where does that energy come from, and the brain power that it takes to then all of a sudden work on your side hustle?
Yeah. For some reason, TV has never been a huge temptation for me. Every once in a while, I'll find a show that I really like and I'll binge it like crazy and waste way too much time. But generally speaking, I'm not really big into TV. Podcasts, on the other hand, are a problem for me because I love podcasts, and sometimes I'll be listening to something and it'll start to get to the point where it's distracting me and I need to shut it off. But the great thing about podcasts is I can listen while I'm driving or while I'm doing the dishes or doing something that's not necessarily productive anyways. And I have to do it. So it's great to be able to learn while I'm doing something unproductive anyways. But sometimes when I really need to focus, I'll have to force myself to take out the earbuds and really just go to work.
Yeah, that's so funny because I'm a podcast fanatic myself. That's why I have a podcast. But I was just leaving a doctor's appointment right before we got on our call, and I was driving home, and the podcast was so good, and they were talking about evergreen courses and the sales funnel to them. I had to pull over because I was concentrating so hard on the podcast. I had to pull over, and I had a little like napkin and a pen that I found, and I was taking notes on the side of the road.
Marketing nerd.
Marketing nerd city. Totally. Okay, so what do you do for your full-time job? You're in IT. What exactly does that entail, and how many hours?
Yeah, so it's a 40-hour week job. Luckily, I work for a company that is really good about flexibility. If I have to leave a little early, they're fine with that. If I have to come in a little late, as long as I'm communicating. But generally speaking, it's 8 to 5 with an hour lunch break, 40 hours a week. And what I do is basically just help people within the company with their technology. I do a support desk, so I'm constantly receiving calls and things like that. But then I also am always working on projects. And usually these projects are to save time, create more efficient workflows within the company. And once I finish one, there's another one. So there's always something to work on.
It's never ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. Any managers or bosses or CEOs of Jacob's listening, put your earmuffs on. Do you have any time at work to work on your side hustles, or is it completely like, nope, I'm at work and I cannot work on the side hustles?
Well, hopefully the earmuffs are on. But I do. And the great thing about my job is there are times where I'm incredibly busy. Sometimes a fire happens, right? And we're the firefighters and we have to go put it out. If the server is doing something weird, if someone's computer is broken down or something, like they demand my attention immediately. But then there are other times where it's a really slow day. I'm receiving no calls and I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm like, okay. Like I have some time to breathe. I have some time to think. And oftentimes I can do a little bit. What I usually try to do is do more of the strategy type things, the brainstorming type things, because I'm just sitting at my desk. And if I'm all caught up on my projects, all caught up in help desk, then I can take out a piece of paper and kind of sketch down some notes or start thinking about some strategy for web design or the podcast. So I do. I probably shouldn't, but I do.
Yeah, I think that's very normal anyways. I mean, how many employees spend at least 3 hours, I think they say, a day on Facebook while they're at work?
Yeah.
So you're doing something productive, and it's still technology, and that makes you more creative and makes you a better worker. So
and I'll say, I mean, the work culture here in the United States and around the world is starting to change. It used to be that you were sitting in your desk right when work started. You're sitting there all day long, whether or not you had work to do. And it was just a very rigid system. We're getting to the point, and I think that we're progressing, where work is a little bit more flexible. And they say, hey, as long as you get your work done, as long as you're providing value to the company, we trust you. And we want you to be fulfilled. And I love that. And I also think it's important as an employee to value the time of your employer because you are on the clock.
Yes.
But there's a culture changing where you take care of your employees and they'll take care of you. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really important. And so I get my work done, and I know that I provide value to the company, and they know that too. We've been talking a lot about some of the projects we've been working on, and there's value there. And so I think if you can go to bed at night knowing that you're really putting in a good day's work and you're providing value, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, yeah. And you're so right. So before I left the corporate world, I was interviewing with a company and I told them that I have a side business. I
Hmm.
teach people marketing.
Yeah.
And they said I can't. I have to sign something that I cannot teach. I'm like, well,
Yep.
if I teach in the evenings on Tuesdays and Thursdays and on the weekends,
What's
and
it
it
to
has
you? Yeah.
nothing to do with the job, why
Yeah.
does it matter? And they said no. And I said, no, thank you. And
Yeah.
then another company I ended up working for, they're like, awesome, you have a side hustle, no problem. And if you ever
Yeah.
want to teach a student while you're in the middle of work, that's fine. Just put a note on your door and say you're busy. And that company I ended up working for, and that company ended up providing them so much more because
Mhm.
they gave me the time, the trust, like you said, that I'm like, whoa, these guys are awesome. I want to perform and I want to give them the
Yeah.
best of me. And because they gave me the flexibility.
Yeah.
Had I worked at the other job, going in like negative with these handcuffs on, I probably wouldn't have given them my
Hmm.
best.
Yeah, and it almost feels like a prison in some jobs where you're there and they're paying you, so they expect you to perform, and it's just a transaction. But
Yeah.
when an employee becomes not just a asset to the company, but an actual part of the company, that's when real productivity happens because they care. They
Yeah.
start to actually care about the mission of the company, and they'll perform much better. If your employees are invested in what you're doing, everything's going to be better. And
Yeah.
so,
So
yeah.
that what you just said is awesome for all the business owners listening that are hiring, right? Give trust, let your employees breathe a little.
Hmm.
A lot of my listeners are on the other hand, though, where they're not the business owners yet. They don't have staff yet. So they're
Yeah,
actually working a 9 to 5. They're in the office from
like
8 to
me.
5, Monday through Friday, like you. And they are debating on starting a side business. What
Hmm.
would your advice be to these people that are like, I kind of want to do my business, but I'm so busy at work? What's your advice to people that are in that boat?
Yeah. First off, obviously I'm biased because I'm doing it and I have multiple side hustles. So I'm a huge fan of side hustles. I think that it is a great thing. And there's a few benefits of it. One, you have a stable income with your 9 to 5. So there's a lot less risk, especially if you have a family like I do. If you have a wife and kids, if you have any sort of financial responsibilities, it's great to know that your paycheck is still going to come in.
Yes.
There's a lot of risk of leaving and jumping into entrepreneurism. Even though you can make a lot of money as an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of time. I think
It
they say that
does.
most businesses don't become profitable for 5 years. I don't know what the exact statistic is, but it's a while. It takes time to build up clients, to build up reputation, to build
Yes.
up a business. And so that's a huge benefit of side hustling is you don't have to worry about the finances yet.
Yes.
The finances are still important, but you can kind of postpone that stress a little bit. But
Yeah.
there's also, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that it's actually a pet peeve of mine when all these, like really famous business coaches that are already making $1 million or plus, and they sit
Yeah.
there and say, burn the boats, just leave your job and get
Yep.
started. And I just sit there and I'm like, you know what? First of all, let's look at your history. You didn't do that. And let's look at most people. They will be out of a job, out of
Mm.
money, and then they're going to be so frustrated and so stressed, and they're going to get a job again,
Yeah.
which is something that if I could go back into my entrepreneur journey, I would have stayed working. I
Yeah.
did the burn the boats because I listened to the wrong person. I was like, oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to do this in 6 months in, I'm going to make 6 figures. It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was stressed and I started having lots of issues with stress and all kinds of stuff
Yep.
because I tried to burn the boats. And so I tell all my listeners and all my students that I have, wait until you have this steady income from your side hustle and you
Mhm.
know it's enough to replace your salary or at least make you comfortable, then
Yep.
quit.
Yeah. And at least, I mean, have a small runway too. If you have 6 months of savings, that's huge. That's a little, you have 6 months to figure things out. But if you have 1 month of savings, no savings, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, think again. Don't
Yes.
get too excited. But I
Yes.
will also say that being an entrepreneur is hard, and it's not for everyone. And that's not a problem. That's not a bad thing. If you need the stability and you can't handle the stress of entrepreneurism, that's okay. The 9 to 5 is there because a lot of people, that's the perfect life for them. And so I would say examine your life, examine your personality, and make sure that it's right for you before you jump into, because it's stressful, it's hard, it's a lot of work. Is it
Yeah.
worth it? Yes, but it's a lot of work.
And I think for some of us that are online entrepreneurs, it's also lonely.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's days where I don't see anybody besides me. I'm married, so I see my husband, but I see my husband and my dog, and then maybe the Chipotle lady that that hands me over the Chipotle, and that could be the only person I saw for like 3 days, and I'm
Wow.
probably still wearing the same pajama pants for 3 days, and it can get lonely. So
It
I
can.
like that you said that it's not for everybody, because if you can't work on your own, if you can't stay motivated, and if you're not okay with the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, it is easier to have a 9 to 5 job, and then you leave it and you have your
Hmm.
weekends free and your nights
Yeah,
free. Because, oh, I don't have mine free, and you
yeah,
said you didn't have yours free.
yeah. And I just want to reiterate that that's okay. I mean, everyone's all the rage right now about entrepreneurship, and I'm glad, because I love that. But it's okay to not go down that path too. You just
Yeah,
need to figure out what's best for you, and follow the path that's best for you.
yeah,
I mean, my wife and I are kind of a perfect example of that. She probably would not be doing all the things that I'm doing. She likes the more calm lifestyle, being able to to chill a little bit, but I always have to be doing something. And so everyone's a little different. Figure out what's best for you and do that.
yeah. And for me, I actually like security. So I like the 9 to 5. I like the
Hmm.
paycheck every 2 weeks. I just don't like to work for people.
Yeah.
And so that's my issue. And that's why I became an entrepreneur. But it is something that if this, to be honest, if this like amazing, if United Nations came to me and said, Andrea, we want you to be the head of marketing of United Nations, I
Uh-huh.
would say yes. And I would leave, and I would actually still do what you're doing. I would keep this as a side hustle,
Yeah.
but then I would go ahead and take that United Nations job. All right, question. Do you hire anybody? Do you have virtual assistants? Do you have any help?
Currently, no. It is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, though. Just the other day, I had a moment where I was like, okay, I'm way overwhelmed. This is getting to be a lot. I had like 7 different projects going on with my web design, obviously the podcast, my full-time job, and my family. And there was just this moment where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is overwhelming. And so I recorded a little Facebook Live and threw it up on the Success Quest page. I was just like, hey guys, like, this is overwhelming a little bit. Any advice for me? Um, but man, like, at that point, I was like, maybe I do need to think about getting some help. And so I've actually been, the first step to that is I'm training my wife to help a little bit with the managerial side of the web design business, sending
Awesome.
emails, sending out invoices, things like that. And that's been helpful. And that kind of is the test, because it doesn't cost me anything. She's just like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I'll send emails, I'll follow up with clients when they aren't paying their invoices. And so that offloads some of that, admin tasks, some of those admin tasks that don't require necessarily the technical skills or the design skills, although she is amazing at design. She'll look at a
Oh,
website and she'll tell me exactly what's wrong with it. I'll be like, there's something wrong with this, and I'll fix that. And sure enough, it's
nice.
better. But that's kind of my first test, but I have been thinking about it. I probably need to start offloading some of the work. Even with the podcasting, I've thought about offloading the editing. Uh, there's
Yes.
just some things that don't necessarily require that I do it, but I'm a perfectionist. And so it's hard for me to let other people do it because I want it done the way I want it done. And it can be hard. So
Yes.
it's kind of something I'm thinking about, but it's not. I'm not quite there.
Yeah. So 4 episodes ago, I said I was no longer going to edit my podcast episodes, and I stopped having an intro and an outro and no more music. And
Mhm.
that time that I've cut from editing and not putting an intro in and an outro, that has really helped me. And so I have put my perfectionist hat off. It's in the closet. I've
Way to
closed the
go.
door. And I really, truly believe, and I do teach that to my students, that B- work is A-okay.
Uh-huh.
Because when we're hustlers and we have side hustles and we have multiple jobs and we're solopreneurs, you can't be perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
for
hard.
sure. Do you mind
so
if I ask
hard.
you a question real quick?
Yes.
Have any of your listeners written in or anything complaining about that, or do they appreciate it? Have you had any negative or positive feedback either way?
No, I've had one person that said that she missed my upbeat music,
Okay.
but she didn't say it like that was horrible. She was more like, oh, that's cool that you're doing that, but I do miss the upbeat music. That was the comment. And that's it. Otherwise, I didn't hear positive or negative. I just heard this one comment. So it's been fine. And it wasn't like a big intro and an outro. It was very small and short. It didn't make or break the show anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's not
sometimes
to say I
we
won't
hold
go
our
back to it. It's just right now I'm a solopreneur. I don't have a lot of staff that I don't have time for it. And I was like, who cares if there's music? I'm cutting it.
Yeah, and I think we hold ourselves to a higher standard than a lot of other people do. I notice every little mistake when I'm listening to my podcast. I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that. Or, oh, I said this. I was stumbling over my words, whatever it was. But I don't think other people do. I think they just listen. They're like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so we need to sometimes take a step back and look at what our work and look at what we're doing from the perspective of someone who's not so involved and not so into the nitty-gritty details, because I can beat myself up all day about my websites or about my podcast, but most other people won't.
Yeah. And, and I've actually had people say to me, like, it's refreshing that, like there was one time, I think I stuttered about the same word probably 30 times. And I refused to edit it out. And I was laughing at myself. It was really pathetic. And somebody said that was really refreshing. And now I know that your show is real and you don't edit. And when you have guests on, the guests are real and you just didn't cut and edit the best parts of them.
Right.
You get the real Jacob, like I said to Jacob earlier, unless he chokes, I might edit, but maybe I won't edit that either. Who knows?
Well, that's a risk with me because I stumble all over my words all the time. So
yeah. And one of the things too, and this kind of goes deeper, which is probably going to be a good transition into your My Success Quest, but I was bullied really bad when I first moved to America. I'm from Germany, moved to America. And at the time, neon was in. So I was wearing a neon yellow shorts and a neon green t-shirt my first day at school in America. And I was bullied really bad. And so I think what happened to me is I kind of got a thick skin. And so the first time I got cyberbullied because of this job, and a lot of online entrepreneurs, I'm going to tell you, that might happen. Most likely, the bigger you get, it will happen. Like, I don't know anybody that's a big size person that has either lots of listeners or lots of money that hasn't. I get people make fun of my accent because they don't know I have an accent because it's not very strong. I've had multiple people tell me that I sound drunk, and I'm drinking water. I hardly ever drink, but it's something that's interesting where I'm like, you know what? I can't listen to these people. I can't. So I'm just going to be me. And if you don't like it, just unsubscribe. It's super simple. And for some reason, that power of that stance made me get into let's put the perfection hat off.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Jacob, I don't listen to my podcast unless I have like a really cool guest that maybe I didn't concentrate enough. So I want to hear it again, but I don't listen to my own podcast because they're done. I can't do anything about it now.
I'm impressed. That's awesome. I have been listening to your podcast, and the other week you mentioned the whole thing about your being from Germany and your accent, and I'm amazed. You don't really have a very thick accent. I am very impressed. What age did you come to the United States?
Was it when you 12.
Okay.
Yeah, and they say that, I think it's the gums, the jaw and the gum, they stop growing around 14. So if you move to
Oh,
another country before 14, your language skills will be better than over 14. Like my brother
yeah.
was 5 years older, total accent. He opens his mouth and you're like, oh, Germany.
Wow. Well, I'm amazed because I think that you sound very, very much American. And every
Yeah.
once in a while I hear a tiny little thing and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like that's a different accent, but I'm
Yeah.
impressed. I think it's pretty cool that
People
you
are like, oh, you have a
were able to
speech
do that.
impediment? And I'm like, nope. All right. So talking about life and balance and living a better life, I want to talk about your podcast. So I
Okay.
just, fair warning, I've only listened to 2 episodes. I
No
just started
worries.
listening to it and I already subscribed to it. I'm already hooked
Oh, well,
after my
thank you.
2 episodes. So tell me what it is and how long you've been doing it and why you started it.
Yeah. So the story goes back clear probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was in college and we were just doing a college party with another apartment of girls. I was in my apartment with boys and we kind of all got together to have some fun. And one of the girls in the other apartment invited a friend over, and it was Caleb, who's my business partner right now. And so we kind of met at that college dorm party, and we didn't really become great friends. We just kind of were acquaintances. We connected on Facebook and that was about it. But then about 3 or 4 years later, he posted on Facebook about business and he said, hey, all my business people out there, anyone who's doing entrepreneurship or businesses, I'd like to talk to you. I have some ideas floating around in my head and I just want to take you out to lunch. So I took him up on it. I reached out to this guy. I hardly knew him. I just was a Facebook friend and I was like, hey, like, let's go to lunch sometime. I have a web design business. I'd love to talk. And so he took me to lunch and he just wanted to start a group of entrepreneurs that could support each other was the whole goal. And so we got like 4 or 5 of us together and we just started meeting once a month to talk about business and to talk about the struggles we were having. And it was amazing. But then it started to turn into, we were like, well, you know what? Like, this is so cool. We're learning so many things. Why don't we start recording or start publishing this to the world? And so it turned into what is now Success Quest. We started with 3 of us and now there are 2 of us. Now it's just me and Caleb. But we've changed a lot since we started. We have 30 episodes now and it's a weekly podcast. So we've been doing it for 30 weeks. But basically we just talk about business. We talk about life. We talk about balance. And we've been having a lot of guests on recently. One of the big things we've noticed one of the big things we've noticed is that
I'm not
guests,
editing this.
don't edit it. That's fine. One of the things we noticed is that guests really help our audience grow because they share it with their network. And so we're booked out. We have like 7 or 8 weeks booked right now of guests, which is
Nice.
amazing. We started out not having enough content. We were like, oh no, what are we going to do this week? And so we recorded on a Wednesday night and published it on a Thursday, but now we're like 6 to 8 weeks booked. We've already got most of those recorded and we're just releasing content and hopefully it's helpful. We're mostly just wanting to learn about people's stories. We want to learn about their journeys towards success, but we also want to kind of redefine success. I think too many people think of success as the rich billionaire that has a Ferrari and has a yacht, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk, oh, I know this guy, he's really successful, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. Oh, he's
yeah.
rich. And success isn't all just about money. And so that's one of the big things of our podcast too, is we want to focus on, yeah, money's great and money's important and you do need money. But if you have all the money in the world, if you're a billionaire, but you have no family, you have no friends, you're depressed, like, are you successful? Maybe in one area of life, but is that enough? I don't think so. I think that success is all about creating a good life and a good balance. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on.
Yes. Yeah, not gonna say any names. One of the I know a millionaire that is super depressed.
Mm-hmm.
All the money in the world, owns multiple houses, has no family that they talk to because they stopped talking to them. Their friends
Yeah.
aren't real because it's the people that want to like ride in the helicopter. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
really sad to see, but everybody else says, wow, he's so successful. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you, my work-life balance is is more important for me than anything. And in the online course creator field that I'm in, where I teach people stuff, the golden rule that it seems to be is like, how to make a million, how to make a million, how to make a million. And it's like, well, what if I don't want to make a million? What if I just want to replace my corporate salary and that's all I want to do? Like, can you teach me that? Like, I don't need it. I don't need a million. I do want a million, so just to be fair. But what if I don't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and honestly, I don't even know now that I said that. I don't even know. I want to be in a place where I can go on vacations enough where I'm going to be super filled with life and I love it. And I don't have to watch the bank account. So I don't know if that's 200,000 or if that's a million or if it's 2 million. I don't know, but I'll tell you when I get there. But that's all I want. I don't need a Ferrari. I don't need all that stuff. And I think that people lose sight of it. And then that's the stress factor. They, you know, like there's this one woman, she also does courses, and I think she was making like 900,000 or something, insanely ridiculous. And she was upset every time she launched, she couldn't make it to the $1 million mark.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's funny. Have you ever seen that movie, The Greatest Showman?
I know it, but I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, there's a song in there that's called Never Enough. And I think that it's so true. Like, it's never enough. You could have $1 million. You could have $10 million. You could have $1 billion. You're always going to want more, at least if that's your mindset. But if we switch the mindset, if we change it to what's the goal? What's your actual life that you desire? And let's build that life. And I think then you can actually accomplish something. You can actually reach what you want to reach. But if it's all just about money, there's never going to be a number that's going to make you happy. Because once you're making $1 billion, I mean, at that point you have the resources to make $5 billion, right?
Yes.
And so you want more. You always are going to want more. And I fell into that trap. I mean, I'm in a point right now in my life where we just bought our first house.
Oh, like, nice.
We're actually doing okay. I mean, we're not rich, but we're not struggling. Like, we don't have to worry about going grocery shopping anymore. We don't have to stress about how much we're buying, how much we're not buying. We've gotten to this great place, but I still want more. Like, I'm constantly talking to my wife. I'm like, hey, like, I want Success Quest to become successful. I want to start making money with the podcast. I want to start doing this. I want to start doing that. And so really it's just understanding what's the real goal. Like, what's the end game? What do you really want to get to? And honestly, even I struggle with that. The host of the Success Quest podcast, I talk about it every week, but it's still a struggle. It's something that I'm working on just as much as everyone else.
Yes. And, you know, I always used to say, I want 2 houses, I want 2 Teslas, and then I want a sports car for my husband. I always said that. And then I met a life coach a couple of years ago, and she asked me, like, what do you want? And I told her exactly that. I want 2 houses, I want Teslas, I want this and that. And she's like, okay, what does that give you? And I couldn't tell her. I didn't know. And then she's like, well, okay, you are going to die in 6 months, Andrea. What are you going to do in the next 6 months? And so I told her I was going to spend time with my husband. I was going to spend time with my family, and I was going to take care of my mom and make her really happy for the next 6 months. And she goes, well, where's the Tesla and where are the 2 houses? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, and she's like, would you go on vacations? Because I told her my whole life is vacations. Would you go on vacations? And I'm like, no, I only have 6 months. I have to spend it with my family. And she's like, okay. That's what life is about for you. And everybody's different. Maybe the 2 Teslas would be fine for somebody that only has 6 months to live. But for me, it came out that it really wasn't about that. It was spending time with my family. And that's when I was like, okay, so I'm sitting here hustling, not spending any time with my family, but in my 6-month scenario, it was family. So I'm missing this piece. And so I've been getting better and better at like putting things together. Like right now, for everybody that's listening, we're recording this on a Saturday, and I told my husband the second we're done with the recording, we're going to go out to lunch, because I want to make sure that he knows the Saturdays are still his, even though Jacob and I took 45 minutes to chat. And that's something that's really important. And I hopefully I'm okay to say this, Jacob, but I asked Jacob to move our time. And I think I had proposed a Sunday, and he said, no, I don't do these things. I don't work on Sundays, or I don't do these on Sundays. And I was like, that's so cool, you know, because a lot of people will just say yes. So I really commend that. I think that's just awesome that you do that. So how do you work on that? Where you just said, like, I'm trying to put my priorities straight and not always want more and more. Like, how do you work on that?
Yeah, it's a lifelong struggle. It's something that every single one of us are going to have to keep working on. And I don't think you ever get there. I don't think it's ever done. I think, I mean, once you get comfortable, you kind of start to go down, and then you have to become conscious again and start working on it again. But one thing I think you can do, and this came from my business partner, Caleb. We were talking about this on one of our podcasts, just me and him. And something that he said is, it's all about finding your why. And so what a little exercise that he did with me on the podcast, which was kind of scary but fun, is he said, okay, Jacob, why do you want to be successful? And I sat there and I was like, well, I want to have the life I want to live. He's like, well, why? Like, why do you want to have the life you want to live? And I'm like, well, freedom. Like, I want to be in control. He's like, why? And he just kept asking me why. He's like, why do you want to be in control? I'm like, oh, like, why do I want to be in control? I want to be in control because I don't even remember what I said on the podcast. I'll have to go back and listen to it. But we just kept going down and down and down. And at the very end, my why ended up being, I do not want to live my life and have regrets at the end. I don't want regrets. And so we just drilled down and down and down. And you can ask that question over and over again, but why, but why, but why? And I think that that's an exercise that can help figure out, okay, well, why do you want what you want? Why do you want 2 Teslas? And maybe it's okay. We're not saying that having money or having Teslas is a bad thing. It's just understanding the reason behind wanting those things and having those things, so that you're actually fulfilled when you get there. So you don't go buy the Tesla and drive off into the sunset and then realize, wait, I'm still not happy. What happened?
Yes. And that's why for me, my salary goal is to replace the highest income I've ever had. And it's not because of the money. My why is because that shows me I can do this on my own without a backing of a company and somebody else's CEO. I am my CEO. So for me, it's a proven pride, I guess, but more like it's just this goal of mine, and I have to be ready to not make that goal. And that's something too, where it's like, if I don't make that, that's okay. But it's something I would really like to have. And it's something that I'm working on a lot, where, the very first course I ever launched bombed, and it bombed really bad. And I talked to somebody and he said, it did not bomb. What happened is you had a launch, you made 0 sales, and you learned from it.
Yeah.
You learned that you're smart enough to launch. You learned that you're smart enough to put a course together. You learned how to start getting people to, your sales pitch and that kind of stuff. And you learned how to make it better for next time.
Yeah.
It did not bomb. So I'm trying to be more cognizant of the words that I use, that it's basically glow and grow. Either you hit what you wanted, there's your glow story. And if you didn't, how are you going to grow from it?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I really like. I'm trying to get better at. I think we all have to keep learning and growing. I think it's never going to stop, Yeah.
Yeah. It won't.
All right. So, tell me the URL of your, or the name of your podcast again.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Success Quest. If you search in any podcast app, you should find us. Success Quest. You can also search Jacob Harmon or Caleb Valle. That's my business partner, and you'll find us. Our website is mysuccessquest.com. Domain names are always fun.
Yes, I know.
Trying to get the right domain name.
And I'll put this all in the show notes. So what if somebody wants to hire you to do their website? So tell us a little bit about that part of your business and what you do there and how you serve others there.
Yeah. So my web design business, the story of it is I started my very first business when I was 15, 16 years old. And I had this idea. I wanted to sell wind turbines and solar panels. So I actually contacted a manufacturer.
At 15?
Yep. I was going to do installations and green energy, all the rave. So I contacted the manufacturer and I actually negotiated a wholesale price and everything. I built a website so that I could sell. And guess what? I never made one sale. But like you were saying, I learned how to build a website. And that ended up being the key to everything I've done since then, because I started my web design company and it got me through college debt free, which is something that I'm incredibly proud of. I was building websites my entire time in college. I don't even know how many websites I've built now. My portfolio isn't complete. I need to update it. If you go to my website, that's not everything I've done. I've done a lot. But I've just been building websites ever since because it's a skill that I learned and it's something that I can market. And it's actually pretty easy to market websites because everyone needs one.
Yes.
Just about any business out there needs a website, and a lot of people's websites really suck. And so it's not hard to find a website that struggles and contact the owner. And I think it's important when we're making a sale too. I don't trash their old website. I don't say, hey, your website sucks and you need a new one. Instead, what I do is I say, hey, I've been looking at your website. I really think the services you offer are amazing. And I'd like to see if there's something we can do to make your website even better and convert more. And so would you be interested to sit down and have a talk? And so I'll sit with them and I'll say, okay, here's some things that are great about your site. Here's some things that could use some work. The design is important. The flow is important. And then we'll just kind of sit down and talk through it. And 99% of the time after having an honest conversation with someone, they say, okay, let's do it. Like, let's fix it.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the past 5, 6, 7 years. I've been building websites, and that business has really been a huge blessing. Like I said, it got me through college. And even now with my full-time job, I've got clients on the side, and it's bringing in a lot of, well, not a lot, but it's bringing in extra income for us. So it's been a huge blessing.
That's really cool. Yeah. And, one of my courses is your competitor. I sell a website academy where I teach people how to do that. And I always tell people, like, if you have the money and you want something really good, hire somebody like Jacob. Hire somebody. But if you are struggling and you don't want to spend any money and you want to do this on your own, or you want to learn how to do your own website, then learn how to do it and do it yourself. Yep. So I have been in marketing for 20 years and websites were a huge part of my business. So I'm really comfortable with it. So I build my own. But if I didn't have that skill, I would hire somebody because I would rather have it done right and have, just like you said, the right flow where you get conversions and you get people signing up than just having some website that you slap together. There's no way to sign up. There's no call to action. There's no clear path for anybody to take. And then you just lose money. So might as well pay money to get a website than have a website you did yourself that you thought was for free, but you're actually losing money. So you're in the negative, you know? So it's something I always tell my students, you choose. You can choose to learn it. I'll teach you in Website Academy. You can choose to hire somebody, and then you just go to Jacob, and Jacob will hook you up with an awesome website.
Yeah. Well, and we live in an awesome era where a lot of things that you used to have to pay for, you don't. I mean, as a business owner, we live in an amazing time. There's so much software and so many tools out there that you can do a lot of stuff on your own. For example, when it comes to websites, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, like all these tools out there, they're not horrible. And if you just need to get a site out there, if you need to have a web presence and you don't have any money, my goodness, go use one of those tools. And I tell people that. Sometimes I'll sit down with a client and after talking to them, I'll say, hey, like right now at this point in your business, it's probably better not to hire me because I'm not cheap, right? And so at this point in your business, go get Squarespace, go get Weebly, go get Wix, and at least put a website out there. And then once you're making some sales, come back to me and we'll make it better. And I think that's a really great thing. And there's so many amazing tools out there that can really help you run your business. Either free or very cheap.
Yeah. So. I'm a big proponent of websites. I think everybody should have a home. I call it a home, but I have seen people have a Facebook page and have a business where they were selling on there. They never had a website and they were successful. Wow. So I personally think websites are important. So I don't recommend that to anybody. but there are people that have made it successful. They have an Instagram account, made it successful. But I do want to warn people, just because I said that and Jacob said that, you don't own Instagram, you don't own Facebook. They can go down tomorrow and you're done.
Amen.
So if you have a website, you have a home. So I just want to have a little
I agree.
side note there.
And there's similar things there if you go with Weebly or Wix or Squarespace too, because once again, you're relying on some company out there. And I think none of those companies are going away anytime soon, but you never know. I mean, companies change their policy all the time. Something that just recently happened that's scaring a lot of people is YouTube changed their terms of service. And they said basically, hey, we can kick any video off. We decide we don't want it on there, or if I think the wording they used is if it wasn't commercially profitable for us to keep your video on there, we can remove it. And that's scary. Like, there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that weren't even made to make money. It's more like a personal or a vlog or something. And people have content. They have hundreds of videos on this service, but guess what? If YouTube decides these aren't making money, there's not a lot of people watching them, there's not a lot of ads, we don't want them anymore, they can just delete them. And so owning your own content is really important. And that's one of the things I like about podcasting, because it's a very open platform. It's not locked down yet, at least. There's companies that are trying, luminaries out there. Spotify is getting into exclusive content and things. And who knows, those things may take off. But for now, at least, it's a pretty open platform where anyone can host anywhere and all the apps can see it. And so I love that. And you really have control over your content as a podcaster. And you can as a YouTuber too, but it is scary because YouTube could, or Google could, delete your videos. And so that's a scary thought.
Yeah. And I have a non-monetized YouTube channel. And so for me, that is scary because it could happen to me, because that's not what mine is for. Yeah. Mine is just supplemental extra videos for my students. Right. And so I moved them over to the platform that I'm on, which is called Kajabi. And I moved my videos over there. But again, Kajabi could go down too.
Right. It's a company. Any of them could. And it's hard. I mean, it's not like we can't use these, because YouTube, it's a good tool. And it's not to say that you should never use a tool like Facebook, for example. I have a business page on Facebook, but once again, I'm relying on Facebook, and they can change things anytime.
Yeah. And when they did with the algorithm, right? The Facebook pages used to get a lot of hits, and now they don't get hits anymore because their algorithm is changed to make groups better. Or you're paying for it, ads or groups are better than pages. So things change all the time. All right, so I am going to have to start wrapping up before my husband starts eating his own arm. Where on social media, what's your favorite site where you want people to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm probably the most active, is at least in a business sense, on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I don't even know what my URL is. I'd have to look it up.
I have it. It's Jacob M. Harmon, and I'll put that in the show notes.
There you go. Yeah, so I'm super active on LinkedIn. I'm always putting out videos, putting out content. I found that LinkedIn's a great platform for finding new people and engagement. I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, but I'm not super active, and that's more personal. Feel free to send me a friend request. I'll probably accept, but you're going to see pictures of my kids probably. So
before we leave, you just said something that huge sparks in my head. So you said LinkedIn works really well for you. How are you getting leads on LinkedIn? Are you doing direct messaging, or what's your quick strategy there?
Yeah, I'll try to be fast. I know that we have to wrap up. If you want the full story, go to our podcast. I don't remember what episode it is, but scroll through. There's an interview I did with AJ Wilcox, and he's a LinkedIn expert. And I learned so much from him, and I started implementing those things, and it's been game changing. But one of the great things about LinkedIn is every single person that interacts with your content, either that's like, share, or comment, all of a sudden your content is now going to be distributed to their audience. And so what I've been doing on LinkedIn, I think one of the best things you can do is just create content, value. Record a video talking about something in your industry or something that you're interested in, throw it up on LinkedIn. You might get 2 or 3 likes the first time, but eventually what'll happen is it'll start growing exponentially, and people will start following you, people will start connecting with you, and then they'll start liking your posts, and then their connections will start liking you and following you. And it just grows and grows and grows. And then at that point, you kind of become a thought leader in your industry, because people see you producing content about marketing or about web design or about podcasting, whatever it is that you do. people start to think of you as the expert, the person to talk to. And then you'll start getting
Yes.
messages and you'll start getting questions, and people start reaching out and say, hey, I saw your video about websites and how to structure a landing page. And that was really cool. I really need a landing page. Can I talk to you about that? Boom. There's a sell.
Yeah.
And so LinkedIn, it's a long-term game though. It isn't fast. It does
Yes.
take time to build a following. It does take time to build till the point where you're getting leads. But I think almost any marketing channel that's worth it is like that.
Yes.
The other great thing about LinkedIn though too is it's organic. The growth, you can pay for LinkedIn ads, but they're very expensive because
yes, I tried LinkedIn ads and I recommend to everybody not to do that.
Don't
Way
do
too expensive.
I mean, if you're Apple, go for it. If you're Microsoft, go for it, because what you can do is you can target, and you know that you're targeting professionals, and so it's expensive. You might be targeting CEOs of companies, and those leads may be worth tens of thousands of dollars to you, and so it's worth it to pay $10 per click or whatever. But generally speaking, LinkedIn ads are very expensive, but LinkedIn organic growth is very, very good.
Yes. I've gotten clients, private coaching clients, a little bit different than my course stuff, from LinkedIn by posting an article.
Yeah.
That's it. Posted an article. All of a sudden I got a message. Hey, I really like what you said. Can I hire you to do some private coaching? So
Yep.
I definitely recommend LinkedIn if your audience is there, that you should go in there. You know, there's a life coach that I know that you think LinkedIn wouldn't really work with life coaching, but it totally does, because everybody has a life. Love coaching or manifestation coaches. I have a lot of coaches that listen to me. That's still a place where you can test to see if you can get some kind of traction. So
Plus
I like that you brought that up.
Plus the search engine is amazing. If you want to find a client, like if for example, if I find a website that's crappy, but I don't know who the owner is, I go on LinkedIn and I search that company, and I can see who's in that company and who the owner is of the company, and I can see who the sales manager is, who the marketing person is. It's amazing if you want to find a specific person, what you can do on LinkedIn. It's almost scary. Like, I'm like, my goodness. Like if I was a executive at some company, I don't know if I'd want to be on LinkedIn, because I feel like they'd get a lot of sales pitches, but the searching is incredibly simple on LinkedIn. You can find just about anyone on there.
And then do you do a direct message to them introducing yourself? Like, how do you get in touch with people that you're searching for?
Yeah. Generally speaking, I would say don't reach out to people with a sales pitch immediately. I hate that when I have someone connect with me on LinkedIn and the first thing I get is, hey, thanks for connecting. By the way, I offer XYZ service and I want you to buy it. I'm like, okay, unfollow. So what I would do instead is reach out to someone, maybe send a connection request with a message, and you could say, hey, I saw you're in XYZ market or industry. I'd like to learn more about that. I'm really interested in learning about business. I'd like to connect with you and start following your content. That's a much better way to reach out. And then what happens is, once you're connected with them, you start to see their posts. Interact with those posts, like them, comment on them, say, hey, I'd like to learn more about this. This is really cool. I really like the way you taught about whatever. Then what happens is you're actually creating a virtual relationship with that person. You've never met them, but they know that you care about what they're putting out there. I post a lot about podcasts. If someone reached out to me and said, hey, I really liked your podcast post, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, and then I'm more likely to want to have a conversation with that person. And so eventually you get to the point where you can actually start to either sell or ask for things. But first you have to provide value. We live in a world that it's becoming too salesy. People value, and they value people that are willing to actually provide value instead of just take.
Yeah. And I always teach that. Give before you get. So 4 gives, 1 get. And when my LinkedIn strategy is similar to yours. So I will like somebody, and then I will connect with them. And then I will just be like, hey, just same thing. Like, I find something to compliment them on. hey, I love your company. I love what it does. Just wanted to pop in and say hello. And then same thing, I start commenting, stuff like that. But then I do actually reach out, but I give them something and I say, hey, you know, you're in real estate. I have this awesome blog post I just did on real estate marketing.
Yes.
Check it out. And so I'm giving them, but I'm also selling myself a little bit with the education, but I didn't ask for anything. And then I might do that 1 or 2 more times. And then I'll say, like, if they're local, hey, want to have some coffee? Or if they're not local and they responded, right? I'm not going to spam them if they're not responding.
Right.
But if they responded, I could say, like, hey, let me know if you ever need help with your marketing. I'm a teacher. And then that's it. And then I just leave it open for them. And if they don't reply, that's cool. And if they reply, then we start having a conversation. And I've got customer or clients that way. So it does work. Just don't be that salesy person that Jacob warned about.
Yeah, I'll unfollow you if you send me a message like that. You're gone. Sorry.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And I do recommend everybody that's listening to check out the Success Quest podcast. It's a really cool podcast. And as you guys know, when there's a podcast that's new, the more followers and subscribes and recommendations and reviews they have, the better. So go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
All right,
we really
Jacob,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. It was so nice to meet you. I guess in person over the internets.
Yeah, let's stay connected for sure. Don't hesitate if you have anything to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.